Welcome back to the No Gray Areas podcast, where today I sit down with renowned life coach, best-selling author, keynote speaker Adam Jablin. Join us as we delve into the intricacies of self-talk, confronting fear, embracing authenticity to bring healing and transformation. Let's dive in. Hey, Adam Jablin, welcome to the No Gray Areas podcast. We are so excited to have you on. We're going to jump right into it. First of all, just our little conversation before we got started, I can tell I wish I lived closer to you because I'd hang out with you, dude. You have great energy. But tell our audience a little bit about your background, your story.
Well, first, Pat, the feeling's mutual, 100%. I think it's the same energy. We vibe on the same energy. A little bit background on my story. Let's rather than make it long, let's just try to make it more current.
Okay.
In 2006, that was a pivotal year for me. July 14th, 2006 was the day I surrendered. I was brought through an intervention and brought to rehab, and that was the day that my journey really began. I would actually say my hero's journey. Not just sobriety, not just recovery, but my hero's journey. And in that, and we'll maybe talk about it, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the disease of alcoholism and addiction. And I also learned for the first time how to have a relationship with God. And I attacked my sobriety. I attacked my recovery after leaving there as if my life depended upon it, because it did.
It did.
And one day at a time, slowly, 1 month at a time, and even 1 year at a time, whatever I had found became contagious to other people, and they loved my enthusiasm, and they really wanted what I had. And I was running a family business. I was third generation. We were the number one lace manufacturers in the world. Lace like intimate apparel, Victoria's Secrets, La Perla, Hanky Panky, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I started helping these people little by slowly, and then before you know it, it became A-list celebrities and entertainers and NFL athletes and NBA athletes, and they liked me because I was the fashion guy, so I had nothing to do with their world, and I didn't want anything from them, and they
Yeah.
wanted what I had. And when we sold the family business right around 2019 and 2020, me starting the Hero Project was like the next natural step. I had 14, 15 years clean and sober. I worked on myself really hard, and I knew that there was something that I could really give to the world in a bigger way. And you're meeting me now 4 years later, and I'm happy to share it with you.
So you're 18 years sober, about 18 years sober?
Yeah, so July 14th, 2006, I will have 18 years, dude.
Congrats, my friend.
Thank you.
Congrats. Huge
Thank
congrats.
you.
Now, I'm curious, did you have a couple of interventions? I mean, a lot of times people with addictions, they take a couple of runs at the mountain, right? A couple of runs at the hill. Did
Yeah,
you, or were
yeah.
you one of those one-time guys?
I was a one-time guy, but I
Wow.
started at 30, and look, it's a blessing. I couldn't have choreographed this story if I tried. But there were a lot of times on my own that I had tried to stop, and it was like whack-a-mole. Do you know what I mean? I'll stop all the pills, boom, and the drinking comes up. Okay, I'll stop the drinking, boom, and then this comes. I constantly needed to feel okay. I constantly need something in my system to feel comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
So there were many, many times that I tried, and that's why, if it's another intervention, or if it's another rehab, or if it's another coach, or just keep getting up and trying.
Yeah, yeah, get back up, right? It's a new
Yeah.
day. When just going back one more time before we jump into the now, when did your addiction start, do you think? When you look back on your life, the chemical addiction specifically we're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a very weird timeline to try to understand where you cross from a bad habit to an unhealthy dependency to a full addiction.
Hmm.
It's very murky, but I would say somewhere around 21 or 22, it was definitely way more than a dependency.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then somewhere around 24, 25, I was addicted.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? It was my master. It owned me.
yeah.
But it's a progressive disease. To be qualified as a disease in the medical, some people don't know this, so I rather like we could share it as brothers.
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
people, to be qualified as a medical disease, you have to have 4 qualifications. So you have to be, 1, you have to be progressive. Over time, it will get worse.
Okay.
2, you have to be chronic, meaning it's always there. It's always there. The third is you have to be primary, not secondary. So an example for me would be I got in an accident and then I drank. That's secondary.
Okay.
Primary would be I drank and then I drove my car into the wall, right?
Okay.
So you have to be
Okay.
primary. And the fourth component to be a medical disease is if you have to be fatal. It has to be able to kill you.
Wow.
Now you lose one of those, you have a disorder, and those are bad enough.
Yeah.
So, the disease of alcoholism addiction is real.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Before we turn on the cameras, you and I were talking about this, and I wasn't sure if you would agree with this or not, because I've always said I think everybody has an addiction. We sometimes look at someone with a chemical addiction and go, I remember I heard a guy once tell me this. He goes, I don't understand someone with addictions. And he was talking about someone with the chemical addictions. And I didn't say it to him. If I could go back in time now, I'd go, what are you talking about? We all have addictions. And you would agree with that?
100%. Nowadays, I think one of the easiest things to do would be with, like, let's say checknology, right? And you could ask somebody how often are they picking up their phone, but they can be addicted to an old story, an old pattern, an old behavior, a certain food, a certain regimen.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes in many, many different facets.
Yeah.
Shopping, gambling, technology, alcoholism, addiction,
Yep.
your own story, your own belief systems.
Yep.
But we're all addicted to something.
So let's jump in then, because you do a lot of coaching. You've done you really have done it for almost 18 years, but really the last 4 or 5 years full time.
Yeah.
You deal with some of this stuff. I've been following you on social media, and I watch some of the things that you're talking about when you go speak at events. You talk about how to overcome addictions. You talk about, and that's what I'd like to jump into, some practical ways. Because again, for our audience listening right now, you have an addiction, and if you don't know what it is, you might want to really think through that and figure out what it is. But once you know that, once you've assessed and you know, like, okay, I think this is something I'm struggling with an addiction toward, Adam, I want you to unpack a little bit some practical ways that we can deal with that. And then I also want to jump into the idea of fear of failure, because you speak often about that. And I think that's something that a lot of us wrestle with. So let's first of all jump into some practical ways to overcome or deal with our addictive personalities that we all have.
Okay, so leading into it, you said, like, let's say this person now is aware that it's an addiction. They're
Yes.
aware.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And
So
if
the
you want to
first
back
thing-
up, Adam, go ahead, because you're the
No,
expert
no.
in this. Okay.
This is
Okay.
great.
Okay.
This
Go.
is great. So now there's the awareness, right? There's the
Yes.
acceptance. There's the admittance. So the first thing I would want them to do in a really, really practical way is I want them to share about it. I want them to talk about it, because when we share things together, we cut it in half. Now both of us are holding it.
Yeah.
Okay. We cut it. Now we're both holding it.
So good.
Now, my truly practical approach is, you don't have to be a believer, but I truly believe that when you straighten out spiritually, the physical and the mental will follow. And I'll give you an example. I know many people that want to start with the physical first, and they get into sick shape. Okay.
Yeah.
But what happens is they either become addicted to something else, or now they're starting to deal. Yeah, they're shredded, or she looks, whatever the story is, but they haven't dealt with the core issue of what's really going on, and
Right.
and they end up killing themselves. Literally end up killing themselves. So the body looks great, but the mind and the spirit are. So I would want to really start in a way that we're going to start a prayer and meditation practice. And it's not going to be heavy lifting, and it's not going to be weird. You could literally say, God, or higher power, or universe, I don't even believe in you.
Yeah.
I don't even believe in you. But I'm doing this because it's told to me, right? And we're going to start just sitting down.
It's a great place to start.
Yeah. And we're going to start that way, and we're going to start sitting and breathing, and I'll usually send them some sort of spiritual text or spiritual message, or right? And then we're going to start to uncover what's really going on inside of them. I like to call it the causes and conditions. So we're going to go through the whole story. We're going to go through the whole story, and we're going to find patterns of how this thing manifests in different ways at different times in their lives. You know what I mean? Because the alcohol and the drugs, or whatever the addiction is really not the problem.
It's always a byproduct. It's always a byproduct,
Yeah,
isn't it? Yep, yep, yep.
it's the fix. For them, it's the solution. So I usually use this example, but if our loved one was really, really sick and we knew it, and the fever spoke, they weren't feeling well for a long time, but now they have a fever, it's 104, and we bring them to the hospital, we're like, that's it. The first thing they're going to do is lower the fever.
Yep.
They can't just go right in and find out what the cause is. So first we're going to lower the fever. Then, now that the body is regulated, now that the mind, body, and spirit are regulated, now we're going to go into what are the core conditions of how this manifested in your life.
Yeah, yeah.
And little by slowly we'll work on things like the body and getting yourself into a better physical state. We'll work on what you're focusing on, where you put your focus, where you put your attention to. We'll work on your languaging. We're going to double down on the spirituality. We're going to start putting all these components in.
Let me go back
you
now. When
know
you said languaging, are you talking about self-talk? When you talk about languaging, is that what you mean?
Yes,
Yeah,
way more self-talk. So as we discussed before we jumped on, I'm a kid from Jersey, so I still speak like I'm from Jersey. I really mean what's going on in here, right?
yeah.
And also sometimes what you say. So many people will say limiting beliefs or limiting things, and you say it enough, it's going to happen.
Yep. Do you find, Adam, that most people don't realize how much they're doing that?
100%, including myself.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Me too. Just the last few years, I've been trying to pay more attention to my self talk. And I don't think most people in my life would put up with me if I talked to them the way I talk to myself. But I've never really paid attention that closely to how sometimes negative my self-talk is and how hard I am on myself. So I was wondering that. So in your coaching, you found that most people don't really realize how much negative self-talk they have.
100%, because it's all in here. The disease, the addiction, lives in the mind.
Yeah,
It lives in the brain. That's where it really is.
yeah, yeah,
Once you stop the pattern, you stop the using.
yes,
You get off the vicious cycle, and the body starts to heal. Well, how do you explain cravings? How do you explain thoughts? How do you explain what it's here? It's all
yeah,
in here.
yeah,
So we have to, there's so much different languaging nowadays. You can reprogram it, you can rewire it, but the bottom line is you're going to work on it.
yeah.
You're going to work on it.
And that's the key, isn't it, Adam, that it takes work. It's not going to be easy.
Bro, I'm still working on it to this day.
Yeah, 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 me too.
I'm still working on it to this day.
Yeah,
I never try to turn people off, so I'll usually say the master or the Messiah or the carpenter. But there's a part in the Gospels where he says, watch out more for what comes out of your mouth than what you put in your mouth. And I
yeah.
think that belongs now to these times more than ever. I think people care more about their macros or what if something's organic than they do about what they're saying about themselves and what they're saying about others.
For sure, for sure. What wisdom from 2,000 years ago, right? And like you're
Yeah.
saying, maybe applies today more than ever in the history of humanity. For
I'll tell
sure.
you, that guy, whatever you think about him, he knew what he was talking about.
He did, and it keeps playing out true generation after generation after generation, for sure. And I think of something else he said, what you store up in your heart is what you really treasure. And that's that again, I think that's what comes out in our self-talk is we don't realize sometimes that we're saying things to ourselves and about ourselves that's coming from stuff we stored in our heart, negativity. And until we realize that and then start changing the way we talk. So I'm curious then, Adam, and the people you work with, once they start realizing this and recognizing it and changing that language, as you called it, what do they start discovering?
That's the fun part.
Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this episode so far. Be sure to like and subscribe to not miss a future podcast. Okay, let's get back to the episode.
This is what I would call the initiation process, right? This is where Luke starts learning the Force. This is where, Mr. Anderson or Neo, they plug him in and he wakes up, he's like, I know Kung Fu. What they start discovering is what's truly possible. What's truly possible. And I mean in every area, right? Be it their home life, with their children, finances, what they want to do with their lives, their careers, their family. Like once you start opening the possibilities, that's what I believe that's where the fun part starts. And you get to find out what's their driving force, what's their real motivation, what's their mission in life, what's their purpose. And we do exercises like this. We write out a mission statement, like the way the Navy SEALs have a creed. We write out a mission statement and a purpose, and we start removing these roadblocks that are lying within them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some of my literature that we used for recovery, they used to use the word. I loved it. It was we remove. We used to block the sunlight of the spirit. It said we were blocking it.
Hmm.
So God's grace is always being offered. It's us that doesn't receive it.
Absolutely. So do you find that people are usually willing, like by the time they come to you as a coach, are they willing to put in the work? Because again, I want to go back to that because I know I've seen this in my life. It takes a lot of work. Most of the lies that we are telling ourselves took root when we were little children, wouldn't you say? Like we didn't even really recognize it. Internal vows we took, lies we believed. And so we've been living those out maybe for decades. So for me to change that, for you to change that, for the people you work with, change that, it's going to take a lot of work. By the time they come to you, are most of them willing to do it? Or do you say there's a high percentage that just,
They're willing, and I think one of all of us have our special gifts. You know what I mean? I was not born 6'6". I can't shoot with my tongue out on a fadeaway. Like we all have our unique special gifts. And I think one of the things that I'm able to do is be extremely vulnerable with them. Even what you just said. I remember when I was 10, I was the fat kid growing up. You know what I mean? My dad used to call me El Chubbo. There was a movie back in the 80s called The Goonies, and my friends would have me do
I
the
remember
chunk
that.
shuffle. Yeah, and one night my dad, you're young and staying up with your dad was like cool. My dad was like, "You want to stay up with me?" And I remember it like yesterday. And he played Rocky 3, and it was when Stallone was against Mr. T, and Stallone was just shredded. I
Yep.
mean, an Adonis. And I remember this fat kid, me, staring at this guy, just being and mesmerized, and just I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I was like, if I could look like that, all my problems would go away.
Hmm.
And that became the first commandment of my life. It wasn't the sacred 10 commandments. That was what this little boy made the decision that literally directed his entire life until he was 30 years old and in rehab.
And at 10
It
years
was
old, you
all
didn't even,
about image,
and you
image,
didn't even,
image.
you probably didn't even realize at 10 that you were making that conscious choice, right? Like you make it,
Not at
but
all.
you don't realize for the next 20 years, because you said up until you were 30, that you're living that out as your first commandment. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'll speak to them like that and I'll open up like that to them. And when they see me be vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and when they see that I'm just like them, I'm just 18 years down the road. That's the only difference between us. I'm you, but I'm 18 years down the road. So that means I know where the pitfalls are. I know where the tripwire is. I know where the booby traps are lying. So when I say come make a left, like I'm doing it because I don't want you to get hurt.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you talk about fear of failure. That came up when I was scrolling through social media, and I've seen some of your posts recently. That comes up pretty often. And I think as an audience, we would probably all resonate. Go, yeah, I struggle with that. So I want you to talk a little bit about that too, and how we overcome that. And then I want to ask you another question, follow up question. Do you think there's such thing as fear of success? We always hear fear of failure. Is there a fear of success? So
So a lot of times what I'm talking about is what I'm actually dealing with. Right? Like, so I'm not. I really want people to know that if they ever do enjoy my content, one of the reasons I'm talking about is because I'm dealing with it too.
you're
I'm
living it.
just like you. I'm just like you. I haven't mastered this thing. I haven't mastered this thing called life. If I mastered it, he'd take me away. He'd be like, your time here is done. So the fear of failure it's a real thing.
Yeah.
It's a real thing, and it stops us from taking that risk, from taking that jump, taking that leap. Now, for many of us, it could be I'm putting my credit card down. I really believe in this. I have to build this out. I have to do this once in my life. So there's a fear. The fear of failure is it really comes in the financial area for them. Certain
Mm-hmm.
people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I want to do this. I believe in it. I know I'm capable of it, but it's going to take what?
Mm-hmm.
And it manifests in a way of, oh my God, here comes the money here, right? But it's not really a financial insecurity. It really, because if you believed if you really believed, it'd be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It'd be
Yeah.
a no-brainer. So a lot of times I'll even do with my clients, like especially when they're dealing with fear, is I had a guy call me the other day from the office. I mean, and he works for this huge company, and he was just going through it. He was going through it, and his boss, his superior, who's an icon that we all know, was in and wanted answers, and he just couldn't get out of his head. I'm like, all right, do me a favor. I'm like, you have a coin or a pen? And he's like, yeah, I got a pen. I'm like, put it down on the floor. And he goes, okay. I go, you put it down on the floor? I'm like, okay, pick it up. He goes, okay, all right, do it again. Put it down on the floor, right? He goes, okay, okay, okay. And I go, pick it up. Now he thinks I have some magic trick going up my sleeve, right? I'm like, put it down on the floor. He goes, okay. I go, now pick it up. He picked that. He goes, okay, okay. So I go, now when you were doing those actions, was there ever a time that you didn't believe that you could do it? Did you ever think, oh my God, I don't know if I could bend down to the floor and pick that thing up? Now he wants me to put it back down. I just don't know if I could bend over again. Did you ever have any? He's like, no, not at all. I'm like, that's because you knew you could do it.
Yeah. 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 Aren't you glad that he hadn't done leg day the day before and actually couldn't bend down and get it?
That was on that one,
It would have
right?
ruined your whole
And
analogy.
totally. And what I had to do was install that thinking of you're going to
Yeah.
walk in his office. You're going to tell the truth. You're going to say what's going on with these projects. You're not going to be, well, if he says this and that, get out of your head.
Yeah.
Your job is just to go explain to him what's going on.
And you're saying that with fear of failure, that's where it always or often comes in, right? It's we're in our head.
That's what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If you really believe, you do whatever that action is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the fear won't be there. The fear will still stay. It's like jumping out of an airplane, but the courage will override it.
Yeah. And I think you make a really good point there because I think sometimes people are waiting for the fear to go away. And what you're saying is the fear isn't going to go away. You're going to do this in spite of the fear, in the face of fear, right? I did jump out of an airplane once, and I can remember going up, like you're talking about, the plane's going up, and then you hear the engine kind of cut out to slow down, and they open up the door, and I scooch over to the side. It was a tandem jump, and the guy's strapped to my back, and my legs are hanging over, and I'm going like, this just got real. Like before it was just an idea. Now I'm supposed to like push myself out into this, 10,000 feet above the ground. But to do that, to push yourself, it's not the fear is going away and then I'm going to jump. I'm going to jump with the fear.
100%. And also what happens is, let's say you could use the jumping out of the plane, or you know what else is great? If you and I have kids, or other people listening have kids, watch them try to jump off a high dive for the first time. And it's paralyzing, and maybe through peer pressure or their friends doing it, they jump, and then the second time watch the hesitation, but then about 5 hours later when you're at the pool, watch how quickly they love, right? It's you have to lean in.
Yes.
You have to
Yes.
lean in to conquer the fear. It's not going to be the first time. It's not going to be the second time. It may not even be the third time,
Yeah.
but eventually you're going to just jump off that high dive over and over and over.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that you bring up kids because I think when you watch little kids, and we probably learn more in our first 2 or 3 years of life than we ever do again. And one of the reasons is because there is so little fear of failure. Like a kid isn't worried about, okay, if I try to walk and I stumble and fall down, I'm going to look stupid. They don't care, right? They just keep trying and do it. And so you look at that time in our life where there's probably the least amount of fear of failure that we'll ever have. And we end up learning at a greater rate than ever, which probably proves again your point, right?
Yeah, I think, but you illustrated it beautifully. Pay attention to children, and so the fear of failure is real. It's real, and it can manifest its way in 100 different ways. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Millions of different ways, actually. But the way we overcome it is we really have to believe and take a leap of faith.
Yeah. So can I ask you, we can edit this out if you want. I want to ask us if maybe you'd be transparent where you said, hey, usually when I'm talking about things, it's because I'm dealing with them. So I've noticed
Yeah.
recently you've been talking about fear of failure. So when you're talking about fear of failure, someone might look at you and go, gosh, you're successful and it looks like you got everything together. What could you possibly be afraid of? So if you don't mind being
Not at
transparent,
all.
what
I'll
are
be
some,
as transparent as you want. So every time you get here, the game doesn't end. You want to go here, and then you want to go here, and you want to make a bigger impact, and you want to help more people, and so I built this thing called the Hero Project. It was successful. It is successful. It has legs. It's real. But to become a bigger business, to be a bigger platform, to be able to help more people, to actually have something that has a real economic engine underneath it, where I'm not a solo preneur with just a few assistants, but have something, it's again a financial risk. It's something
Yeah.
that I'm like, I believe in my cause, I believe in my mission. This is where my dollars are going to go. This is right. And I'm very proud of who I am, and I'm very proud of my success. But I'm financially independent. I can do a lot of amazing things, but I'm not financially free, meaning I don't fly private. It also means when my daughter decides to go out of school to Indiana instead of a Florida-based college, okay, there's a chunk of change, but my son also has camp, and that's a chunk of change. Like, I actually have to live within a budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I'm at in life. I'm not ashamed of it at all.
Yeah.
Not ashamed of it at all. I'm not the guy flying on private jets. I'm not the guy buying 10 cars. That's not me,
Yeah.
right? I'm financially independent. I have a beautiful life, a fulfilling life, but there's a certain amount. And then you have to put more out that may be coming in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a fear in that, and I have fears in relationships, and I have, there's fear.
Yeah.
There's 100% fear.
A theme that I heard you saying through that is confronting comfort, right? That you get to a certain level, and to go to the next level, you get a little comfortable here, right? Like it was uncomfortable getting there, but when you get there and you're there for a little bit, now it's comfortable. This is normal. This is the new normal. But to go to the next level, like you're saying, you're going to have to confront comfort again, aren't you?
Every time, man.
Yeah.
Every time. And I wish, because I see it in you, and I know I have it, I wish for me, uh, emotionally, I had that feeling of, when you put an extra 5 pounds on the bar,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
there wasn't really fear. There was more of like an excitement and an adrenaline and a focus, and if I fail, okay, the spotter's there. And I wish I could do that in other areas of my life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it would be a great example, right? God could be the spotter, and all I got to do, but I haven't yet
Yeah.
been able to totally transfer that feeling
Yeah.
of I'm going to go for it. You know what I mean? For me, it's emotional, and it's praying, and it's meditating. It's okay. Here we go. And my brain will want to go to my failures, not to my successes.
Mhm.
Always wants to go to my failures. Always.
Oh
That's
man,
how my brain's
absolutely.
wired.
Yep, you can have 10 successes and one failure, and you're gonna dwell on the failure, right?
Yeah.
I think so. As we get older, though, too, part of the reason it gets a struggle is there's more to risk, right? Like when you're 18, you go, I'm gonna risk everything. That's $10 in the top of your sock drawer. When you're at our age and you say I'm gonna risk everything, you're going, I got a family, I got retirement, I got a business I've built. So I think sometimes as we get older, the danger with us starting to get comfortable and staying in our comfort zone is because there's more to risk. It's just the reality.
No doubt about it. And the more transparent I am, and the more you and I talk about this, and the more I deal with these things, it really helps with my clients, because now I'm extremely empathetic to where they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
I know exactly how they feel. I'm just dealing with it in another area of my life. And if I'm going through this, you know what I mean, then they can go through it.
Adam, one of the things I love about you, and I could tell again, if we lived in the same state, we'd be hanging out often, buddy. But
Yeah,
I
dude.
love that you're just transparent. And it's almost like you're saying, "Hey, I'm a fellow human being. I struggle with things. I know you struggle with things. Let's link arms and do this thing together." And we're in a education that's never going to have a graduation, right? We're not going to graduate from this education we're in called life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that about you.
For me, that's been the key to my success. Is really being the more authentic I can be, and the more Adam I can be, and less try to use somebody else's words or persona or training materials or whatever you could think of that we learn on our journey. But the more I can be myself, the better I can help somebody else.
Yeah.
Not that I don't learn along the way and adopt different modalities, but I have to adopt it and use them as my own. I can't just take uh, what's a big name, Tony Robbins teachings,
Yeah.
and teach them like they're my teachings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's stealing,
Yeah.
but B,
Yeah.
it won't affect them. It won't
Yeah.
match. It's not me.
Yeah. And it almost takes our conversation full circle, because the reason that you, Adam, can be comfortable and teaching, training from how you're wired is because you discipline yourself with your self-talk and the things you're saying about yourself, and you become a little more comfortable. We're never going to arrive, but a little more comfortable about who God made you to be. You know, you're not Tony Robbins. You're not,
Yeah.
put another list of names there. You're Adam Jablin, and that's enough.
That's got to be it. That's all I got. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not Stallone. I'm not. You know, I'm not. And to make sure that we address everything you said, I think fear of success is just as big in some ways as a fear of failure. Because what I have seen personally is that that's where you get to really, really see how much you care about other people's opinions of you.
Hmm.
And you get to see how well your communication skills are too. Because if that's within the house, you have to let that spouse know we're doing it together. You know, I
Yeah.
love you. We're on this. I'm not going to leave you.
Yeah.
I'm still me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you can't have those conversations, those very vulnerable, open conversations, and you start realizing, well, what is this going to look like, and what is someone going to say about my social media page, and what is someone going to say? Well, then you really care more about others' opinions of you than you do about, you know, what's going on in here.
Do you think that's where fear of success comes from?
I think that's the most common one I've seen.
Yeah.
But you know, it probably manifests itself in many, many different ways. Maybe can I handle it? A lot of it's just the unknown. What does
Uh,
this look like?
yeah.
Right? Like, what does this look like? Do I move?
Because the
What is
unknown's
like?
uncomfortable.
Yeah, but the people that are attracted to my message or my coaching, and it tends to be a lot more about other people's opinions for their success
Mm-hmm.
thing.
I know that my history. I've worked with a lot of people too. Worked in faith-based
Yeah, of
organizations. Did a lot
course,
of
of
kind
course.
of counseling type stuff. Not an official counselor, but I would say that, man, it's got to be 90% plus, maybe even a lot higher than that. That's their struggle. Worried about what other people are
Yeah,
going to think. In fact, I remember Adam sitting down with a lady. She was one of the wisest people I've ever met. She was in her 70s. And I asked her, I said, if you could go back and do life again, what would you do? And she said, I would care a lot less what other people thought or how they told me to live my life. I would live my life more how I believe God wants me to live my life. So here's a 70-year-old saying, I spent most of my life trying to live my life according to other people's opinions.
yeah.
So would
My
you say
dad,
similar?
bro. Yeah, my dad taught me that lesson. My dad's a car guy. And so I told you I was third generation. And my grandfather, who started the first model of this, was a captain in the Navy. Suit and tie every day, but very humble. Never went above a Cadillac, blah, blah, blah. Did well, but had certain belief systems, right? Spent his money later, but not on those things. And one day, my grandfather was extremely critical on my father, who was crushing it.
Yeah, yeah,
And my father finally realized there's nothing I can do to get this guy's approval or to be happy.
hmm,
And he went out. He's a car guy. Like, you like what you like. I'm not a car guy. That's not
yep,
what. But he's a car guy. And the day he went out and bought his first Ferrari was the day that he was proud of himself, and B, he was like, I don't give any.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And that shows you how close it can be. It could be your father's opinion, your mother's opinion, your spouse's opinion. Yeah, but you care about other people
yeah,
and your perception. And when he did that, it actually just created more because he was more himself.
yeah.
He wasn't trying to be my grandfather. He finally came out and was who he was.
Yeah. Man, a huge step in life when we can overcome that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Huge step in life, for sure. For sure. Because we're a slave to others if we're always trying to live according to their opinions of us or what we think their opinions of us. I think sometimes we spend so much time thinking that people have this opinion of us and they're probably not even thinking about us.
100%. I
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
friend, you'd love him. And he constantly, one of his favorite lines is, nobody cares.
Yeah.
It's like, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Whatever you think, nobody
Yeah.
cares.
Nobody cares. That's so good. That's so good.
Nobody cares. Tells me all the time. Nobody cares.
That's a great line. I need to get a t-shirt
Yeah.
that says that.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. And
Yeah.
just glance at it and remind myself of that. As we're wrapping up this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment on something you'll take away. All right, let's hop back into the remainder of the episode. Well, Adam, hey, thank you so much for being on No Gray Areas today. How do people get a hold of you? I think certainly our audience has probably been inspired. What would they do to find you?
Yeah, I listen, you and I are a later stage of the game, so I try to make this easy for myself. It's Adam Jablin at all platforms. You know what I mean? So it's website's Adam Jablin, Instagram's Adam Jablin, TikTok, which I still can't figure that one out. LinkedIn, so just Adam Jablin, and you'll reach me, and me or anybody on my team will get back to you within 24 hours, especially if you're suffering.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, Adam Jablin. They can go to any of the social media platforms. Your website is Adam Jablin. Yeah, good. Well, we always end the podcast this way, so our audience has heard you for about 45 minutes here, got to know you a little bit. You got to try to stump me. 2 truths.
Let's do it. Here we go.
We're both competitive, so you're going to give me 3 statements. I got to try to figure out which one's a lie. Let's see who wins this.
Okay, here we go. I wore a Superman shirt every day for the first 5 years I was alive. Number 2 is I once did 15 pills of ecstasy, an 8 ball of cocaine, and drank a bottle of tequila and was able to repeat it the second day.
Wow. Okay.
My third thing about me is that about 90% of my clothes are black.
We both got black shirts on.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that's the truth. Is that true? The last one.
The first 2 are true. I would say maybe 50% of my clothes are black.
What? Oh, you got me then. You're wearing a black shirt
I
too.
tried to do a little, I put the shell here and I did it right. But the Superman nonsense and the 2 days in a row that I really should be dead, 1,000% true.
So I was going to go with Superman being true because I see Superman behind you. You obviously love Superman. So I was going to go with that being true. I was going to go with the middle one being a lie, but you lived that out. You lived 2 days of that.
Yeah, bro. As a matter of fact, in my book, Lotsaholic, there's one fabrication in the whole book. There's one. I talk about it now, but I didn't back then, because I want to be. I wanted, if I was going to write a memoir, for it to be. I wanted everyone to know exactly who I was, and the one thing I lied about was the amounts that I did, because I knew if I put the real amounts, it can make people think that they could do that.
Yeah.
Or B, it would just be like,
you're lying. You're lying. Yeah.
You're a liar. So I minimized my alcohol and drug use, and it was still bad enough that people are like, okay, he's crazy.
Yeah.
But that was the one thing that I did in my book, was I didn't want people to think that these amounts were possible.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make it readable and believable to the reader.
Yeah.
But the truth of it is, I was worse than what I put in my book.
Wow. Well, Adam, hey, thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate it. If we go to your website, can we get that book you're talking about? I love reading. I'm an avid
I'll send
reader.
you one.
All right, Adam. Hey, thanks so much, man. We'll talk soon, okay?
Thank you, man. It was awesome. It was awesome bonding with you. This is great.
Yep. What an amazing episode that was. As we conclude this interview, let's carry forward Adam's wisdom, remembering that true success lies in embracing our vulnerabilities and supporting others alongside their journeys. Thanks for tuning into the No Gray Areas podcast. We'll see you next time with another incredible episode.